Hi everybody. So I am Demille, Dom for short. This is Meditating Monkey or Alfred. I'm just going to refer to him as Monkey because that's what I always call him.
So, yeah, pretty much everyone calls me Monkey at this point.
So, Monkey, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us all of the things about yourself?
Okay, so everything. Hi, my name is Alfred. Most people know me as Monkey or Meditating Monkey. I'm a content creator. I started off basically doing maps for the most part. I've been doing this for 8 years now on Roll20 at least, as far as like being a content creator, releasing content. I've been drawing and making maps even longer. I couldn't even tell you when I started doing that. I'm a dad. That's really my full-time job, if you really want to get technical about it. But outside of that, I played a lot of music in my life. I don't know how many people actually know this about me, but before I was ever an artist, I was actually an artist, a musical artist. And I also did a lot of culinary art too. If you, that's the fancy way of saying I worked in a kitchen for most of my life. So yeah, I guess one of the questions that Dom sent me I guess we'll go ahead and go straight to that one of how did I start? So, which I think is a really cool story. Personally, I like it as a story. I'm proud of it at least, and I'm sure that there's other people that kind of share the same loose starting point at least. Years ago, so I got into D&D and tabletops, RPGs a little bit late. I was always into them when I was younger. By the way, I'm 39 now, so I'm a little bit of an old person. But I was always into them when I was growing up. I just never really had a chance to play them. I played a lot of JRPGs like Final Fantasy 3/6, even Final Fantasy 1, even Chrono Trigger. Those are probably some of my favorite games. Secret of Mana. All those games really got me into the genre, if you will. And I just always loved like fantasy and RPGs. So naturally, something like a tabletop RPG was just something that I always had interest in, but I never got a chance to play until I was in like my late 20s or so. Hung out with some friends, and they actually were starting up a game, and I was like, well, let me in. I want to play. And so we did, and it lasted for, I don't know, like 6 months or so, and then it just kind of fell apart, as many campaigns do. And then after a few years, I was just, I still had the itch, and I was like, man, somebody's had to have made a way to do this online where I don't have to rely on friends and unreliable schedules there. I could rely on people online, and they're gratefully reliable schedules, right? So I searched on Google, and I found Roll20 and joined, started up a campaign, and had some players. And so at that point, I started, obviously DMing a game for the first time ever. I needed to have some cool maps and stuff, and that's where I started making stuff. I just started making my own maps. I also bought some stuff on the marketplace whenever it came out. I was a huge fan of Gabriel Picard. I don't know if anyone can tell by my own style. I kind of have a similar style to his. But yeah, for the most part, like it was either I would make some maps out of his tile sets, or I would make my own map in Photoshop. And my players constantly told me for probably like half a year, if not longer, straight every session, I need to sell my stuff because it was good. And I was just like, no one's gonna buy this stuff. It's just no. But eventually one day I finally was just like, all right. So I signed up, sent them my little application, put a map pack out, and fast forward 8 years, and it's like literally my gig, I guess. So that's how I started. It's just my players encouraged me, and I was already making this stuff, and I was just, so I kind of knew what I wanted, and when I just kind of made what I wanted to have, and also released some of the stuff that I was making for my own campaign anyways. And that's just kind of how it started.
So since then, so this was 8 years ago. Since then, how many products have you released on Roll20?
I just counted, actually, because I saw that question on here, and I was actually kind of blown away by that number. So I have 312 listings on Roll20 right now. Now, some of those are, I don't want to call them duplicates, but some of them are like, so Roll20 has a weird way of listing. They have map packs, and then they have the add-ons. So I do have a fair amount. I'd probably say like a good 60 or 70 of them are like the same thing. Just one of them is the map pack where it just uploads to your art library, so you don't have to worry about your download limitations and everything. And then the other one is the add-on version that has like the dynamic lighting and all that stuff set up for it too, so that people can just go right to playing and they don't got to worry about setting everything up and sizing your maps and everything. But yeah, 312. That's how many. That's a number.
That's a lot of products. So would you say that Roll20 Marketplace is currently kind of like your main gig, and then you expand it out from that to, Kickstarter and Patreon? I know that you have those things going on. Are you planning on, expanding into, DM's Guild after all of the OGL drama? I don't know if that's a good idea anymore in D&D in general. But do you have any plans to expand further? What is your thinking about that?
So I already kind of have. But yeah, to start with the first part of the question, yeah, Roll20 is my main thing. It is definitely like my, if you will, my bread and butter, my main source of income. I did branch out and get some stuff listed out on TTRPG a few years ago. Like you can kind of go on TTRPG and look a few sets back and see about how far I got and look at my Roll20 timeline and see. I basically listed like about like 90 or so of my things on drive-thru, and then I just kind of didn't have time to keep doing all the other ones and make a really pretty listing and everything. So I just never got. I keep telling myself I'm going to get back around to catching up my full backlog over there, because I got a lot more. And honestly, all the stuff that is on drive-thru that I have out is like my older stuff, and I've just grown as an artist since then. I'm just like, I really need to put the rest of this stuff out.
It takes so much time to get all of your stuff to all of these marketplaces. It's really hard.
And I'm on Forge too, so I've done some Foundry stuff, and it's still like I think I got like 30 things over there. I did a Patreon. I opened a Patreon probably like 5 years ago, but I didn't do anything with it. Like I didn't even like post anything to it. I just like opened it, and then like I think I posted like 5 or 10 maps or something. I tried streaming for a little bit. I was trying to do like a map a day stream thing.
It's hard,
and that was a fast route to burn out.
I tried that too. It's really hard.
Yeah, I did that. I had like one person join my Patreon, and I was just like, okay, cool. And then I think they're still a patron of mine, and I'm like. They've been paying me for like 5 years, and I didn't put anything out for like 3 years. I even thought about closing it at one point. But then eventually, it was around 2020. That's when I actually started revamping my Patreon, and I really actually trying to focus on a little more, just to have more than one. What happens if Roll20 goes out of business or something? I don't think they will, but what happens if something happens and Roll20 becomes no more or not as viable of a solution? It'd probably be good to diversify yourself out there and have more than one avenue. And plus, not every creator is going to be Roll20 is their bread and butter. Some people are going to have, Patreon be their bread and butter, or like you. I know you're big over at Foundry. It's not like everyone is going to, like, you got to find your niche, I guess you could say. But it's not a bad idea to have multiple places, because some fans might want to support you in a different way. They might want to do a monthly thing. They might want to do a different VTT. So just having different areas is always a good way to go. What was the rest of that question?
I think you covered it.
Okay.
So what do you think contributed to your success on Roll20?
That is such a hard question. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that one out. No. So like, I think one of it is just knowing what I wanted, I guess, what I played with. If you think about it at the time, when I first released something, my first major releases, I guess you can say, successful ones at least, were tile sets. And at the time, there was no Incarnate, there was no Dungeon Draft. Those things weren't even like a conception in anyone's head at that time. So I was just, let's make some modular tile sets, because that's something that I used. That's something that I bought. I was just like, I'll put some of this stuff out. And that's very useful at the time, because making a way for someone to build a battle map real quick, a dungeon map that they can use real fast and efficiently, and it looked nice and pretty for something that you can put down on a screen and not stare at a white screen for 4 hours. It really, it helps a lot. And especially when they like snap up together real nice. you can build a dungeon map in like no time, and it looked really nice. And I also did some forest builder sets too that were, you know, where I had some modular grass where you can make it as big as you want, and then like put my assets down to trees, cliffs, rocks, all of that stuff. And then doing that in the different biomes, you know, that's another really important one, I think. And honestly, I think that's a good thing to talk about how do you cover that? You know, how do you make something good? You don't want to just do nothing but tile sets. You kind of want to have like a sample of everything, if you will. That should be like, if as a new creator, that should be one of your biggest goals, I think, in my opinion, is to be able to provide something that covers all as much as you can out of someone's game. So having the dungeon tile sets, having the forest ones, having the desert biome, having your swamps, your jungles, your Arctic areas. Those are all things that most people are gonna need in their games. So just having that stuff covered, I mean, I think it goes without saying. If you only have one thing, sure, you could be good at that and you might be the go-to person, but if you also provide those other things too, they're more inclined to want to stick with a consistent style in their game.
Yeah.
I know that was important to me. You know, that's half the reason why I kind of studied, like I mentioned earlier, Gabriel Picard was a big influence to me because I was using some of his stuff. I kind of wanted to, in a way, come close, not replicate, but come close to his art style to where it fit in with it. So that whenever I would use a map, one of his maps in one of my games, and we use one of my maps in one of my games, my players wouldn't be like, "Oh man, this is such a change of style," you know. So, and that's another thing too, I think, is consistency. Just creating that consistent line across your work it goes a long way too.
And consistency when not only with your art style, but also with your releases, the timing of your releases, and consistency of quality. I think consistency is a major component of really getting any kind of traction. It's like one of the first things that you really need to have.
For sure, especially on sites like Roll20, which for the longest time, I know we had some conversation about this the other day. They just changed some of their filters on the site, but for the longest time, it was like one of the only ways to be found on Roll20 was to have new releases. That whole new release section it's how any creator is going to get discovered, especially new creators, even creators that have been around for a long time. So having yourself, you know, you don't have to release every single week, or at least, you know, I don't think you need to release every single week, but being able to release like every other week or at least once a month at least really helps you out, because every time you put something up, it's like your new product is an advertisement for your old products, because when people see that one, they're going to click on that, and you know, there's a chance they'll click on your name, go to your profile and be like, well, what else does he have? And then they'll see that you got all this, you know, 312 other sets, and then they'll be like, well, man, I really need this jungle set now. I'm running Tomb of Annihilation, so this is perfect. So yeah, like having a release cycle is really, really important. I think it's important for whether you're on Roll20 or Patreon. You know, I think that's another important one over there too.
Yeah.
You know, people grow to see your cycle, and they expect to see, you know, something come out on Fridays, you know, like or at least like weekly or something like that. But yeah, that's a big part of it, of keeping that consistency there. You know, you obviously you got your consistency in your quality, your consistency in your release, and like just I think consistency in your overall like style and approach to things too is pretty important as well. And like for an adventure writer, you know, it just doesn't just go down to maps. Like having like a consistent way that your language is inside of your adventure writing. That's syntax is a big thing. You know, it's why it's one of the things that was a big scare with the whole OGL thing recently. You know, like, are we going to have to change our syntax? Is this going to confuse all of our fans, because we're going to all of a sudden have to reword the way we do everything to not kind of sound exactly like the way that WotC sounds or something.
Yeah.
And then like you look at like magic items, like it's not just consistency to yourself too, like being able to be consistent to other people as well. It's I think that's a big thing too. Like you don't want to like fully step on someone's toes or anything, but you want to at least be able to be like, hey, look, I can, you know, I see I'm going to pick on someone in chat. I see Zach in here. So you want to be able to use one of Zach's maps and use one of my maps, and there not be a drop off in quality. So that it's like having a bar set with one creator. It's also setting a bar for another creator too, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. So how many releases do you normally shoot for a month? Like you specifically?
I am so underhitting that lately, but that's kind of because I've been really working hard on doing this Kickstarter thing and getting that finished, which is almost done. I can't wait.
And we'll talk about that too. It's an awesome Kickstarter too, and I backed it, and I am waiting for those cards, even though it's D&D, but they look so freaking good, and you keep posting them on social media, and I just keep salivating over them.
So what I liked to do personally, in a perfect world, if I could, now I said you don't need to release every week, but in a perfect world, I would love to have like a simple map pack out once a week, and then have like another, like a bigger, or at least every other week, have like a one-shot adventure out once a month kind of thing. And then have like, maybe like a new asset pack or tile set out about once every other month or something like that. I think that would be like a good cycle for my own personal workflow and my own capacity that I can handle. And also something that would fit with, staying with the theme of like the seasons, if you will, which is another thing I think, we talked about release cycles, paying attention to what's trending. And sometimes that's a new adventure. Sometimes that's just the season. Like it makes sense to make wintry stuff into winter, right?
Yeah. Or the holidays sometimes, Halloween and Christmas and everything in between and prior to that. So we know that Roll20 Marketplace, it has its own, so to speak, like promotional area with the new releases where pretty much anyone who is on Roll20 Marketplace can get visibility so long as they release consistently. However, do you use social media to promote your work on there as well? Or do you only use social media to promote maybe other avenues? How do you go about it?
So social media is a huge thing, honestly. And honestly, I feel like if I would have like started doing social media earlier in my career, I might have been more successful, if you will. It's really important. It really is, especially, especially for other places like Patreon. Like you post on Patreon, people don't just naturally see it. You gotta get it out there.
Yeah.
I don't really promote my Roll20 stuff as much as I probably should, but I post my content as I'm making it over on social media. I'll just keeping that engagement going over there. But you also with social media, you don't want to just like be a walking billboard advertisement over there. You also want to engage with people. And there's all the social medias are different. There's Twitter that personally is probably my biggest social media, which is, it's good. You can put out, I feel like you can do both. You can get personal with people and you can kind of advertise a good bit over there, put out your new magic items, put out your new maps and stuff like that, get some people liking that, but also go over there and talk about some of, like drop some memes on people. As much as it sounds crazy that people interact with them, and if they interact with a meme and with you and they get a laugh with you, they might have a better chance of seeing one of your advertisements later, not only show up in their feed, but also be enticed to check it out because they've talked to you.
Yeah, that's how Twitter algorithm works, is that if they interact with you in any capacity, then they are going to have a higher chance of seeing your other stuff that you post. So it's, as much as it is cringy for, I just post memes all day, it works.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to just do memes though. I do feel like you should. I mean, if you don't want to do memes, don't do memes. If that's not your thing, don't do it.
Yeah.
But it's still fun to do them. I mean, like it doesn't take much. I mean, you can just go. I mean, nobody cares if you steal their memes. You can just go and find someone else's memes. You can go on my Twitter and find my memes and take them and post them yourself. I'm cool with it. So I probably took them for someone else. I've made some of mine. my own memes, but not all of them. Actually, nowhere near all of them.
Yeah.
But there's also like staying up with topics, like asking questions. What is his name?
Polls work really well as well.
I don't do polls that often. I should. Maps and Quest, I think that's his name.
Mhm.
He has a great Twitter, and honestly, like if anyone wants to see a good way to run a Twitter, go check his out, because he engages with people. He posts a lot of really awesome questions. Some of them are funny. Some of them are like gets you thinking about the game. You know, and that's what you want. You want to ask people stuff. You don't want to just be like, hey, here's my map or here's my meme. You also want to be able to say, what's your favorite class? You know, just very generic question, so that people will start responding to that. That way it shows up in their feed that end, and then the other stuff shows up in there too. Some of the other social medias too. Reddit, honestly, Reddit's a really good one. And I know you're a big fan of Pinterest too.
Mhm.
I really need to get caught up on Pinterest. I go through phases on Pinterest. I'll go like and just like drop like 50 things on Pinterest, and then just like I don't touch it for like 2 months.
Pinterest is a strange beast. Pinterest, I think, is my number 2 source of patrons, and I still don't know how it works.
Yeah, I know, right?
I put my stuff on there and it's just magic. Step 1, post on Twitter. Step 2, question mark. Step 3, question mark. Step 4, profit. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens.
That sounds about right. And Reddit's a weird one too. I mean, because you got like so many different subreddits. They all have their own cultures and rules and whatnot. And you really, it's not like you're just go post on Reddit. No, it's like go post on 50 different subreddits and hope that you don't get banned from all of them because you broke one of the rules on one of them because you posted twice in the same week or something. But you really do. You gotta post on multiple ones and kind of check them out. I know there's some of them that kind of get upset about that because, like, you know, I know at one point in time r/roll20 was basically just a mirror of r/battle maps.
Yeah.
And they kind of changed the rules, and so there's other Reddits that have done that, and that's fine, and I get that because they want to have more discussion about the VTT or whatever their actual Reddit is, their subreddit is, rather than it just be because, you know, they want engagement there too. They don't want just people walking by and going upvote, download map, not spend any time on their place. And let's just face it, honestly, your map posts, while they might bring you some traffic on your Patreon, they aren't the most engaging posts. They aren't on Twitter. They aren't on Reddit. You know, they might get a lot of likes and retweets and upvotes, but they aren't going to be the ones that really get the interaction and the personal level that not only do we want as creators, but also to people running those subreddits. They want that interaction as well.
That's true.
So I know that's a very in-depth conversation there about the whole Reddits, because I know some people are a little touchy about that, and just seeing some of the Reddits change their rules, they're like, "Oh, you hate creators now," and it's like, well, not necessarily. Although I'll argue on both sides of that one.
So you also recently kicked off your Kickstarter, and there's a link in our tea discussion for Monkeys Who Kickstarter. So why did you decide to, I know we kind of touched on it, but why did you choose Kickstarter, but also why a crowdfunding campaign?
So, I mean, I don't think that there's any way to deny it. You look at Kickstarter, there's a lot of money to be made on Kickstarter. There really is. But I think a lot of people don't really realize how much money goes into creating a product. Sometimes when you go through Kickstarter and have a successful one, the margins aren't as big as you might think. But like, yeah, I wanted to have another outlet, another crowd, another place to gather more people, more sites. Also, I really wanted to do a book of dungeons. Which is what I kickstarted. I really wanted to do this. This is something, and I knew there's no way that I was going to sit down and just like spend a year of my life writing this and just hope that Roll20 doesn't fall apart, or hope that my picture doesn't fall apart, or whatever, and then try to sell it without, you know, that you need that crowdfunding, kickstarting. At least a lot of people, especially like medium and smaller. I don't consider myself a large creator. I consider myself like a medium size, maybe small to medium creator. So for a lot of creators to actually make that that dream of making their own book, you kind of need that help. Printing is not cheap. I think I had like, what was it, 900 and something backers I had on this one. Let me open it up, get a more accurate number.
And you also funded in what, 8 hours?
973. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I didn't expect that. I actually didn't expect to fund anywhere near what I funded on this one, which was $46,256 funded there. I also had another $12,000 on BackerKit as well. I did not expect that. I did not expect that at all. I was thinking 10,000 was going to be like my ceiling, and then and that's what my original stretch goals kind of were, leading up to 10,000. And then like I blew that out within like the first couple of days, and I was like, okay, what do I do now? And I was like, well, I'm learning 3D modeling. I guess I can add some STLs, and then those all got unlocked. Or I know I did cards next. That's how the card deck even came.
And this was your first Kickstarter too, right? You haven't done any before.
Yes, that was my first Kickstarter, and honestly, it wasn't even going to be this Kickstarter. It wasn't even going to be my first one. My first Kickstarter, I was going to do a Zine Quest in February last year, but Zine Quest got like postponed, and I was like, well, I don't want to just Kickstarter zine at this point if it's not in the Zine Quest. So then I kind of went back to the drawing board and came up with this idea of doing the Tomb of Dungeons, and it made sense to me to do this one. Part of it was I wanted to make my first Kickstarter where I started, which is making dungeon maps. That's kind of where I think I got the most popularity. A good bit of my popularity on Roll20 at least was from making a lot of my old dungeon maps and tile sets. So I wanted to kind of go with that route and make a bunch of plug and play dungeons. And after that, it once it funded, it took on its own. It did take on its own life. It got to a point where it's just like I was blown away. That's all I can say. At how much it went, and then like the final like 48 hours, it almost I think it was at like 28, and then the final 48 hours happened, and I blinked my eyes and I was at 46. I was just like, what just happened? But one of the points I was bringing up about that was like the margins. So like out of those 973 backers, I have I think roughly about 400 hard copies of the book itself. I wish Cage was still in here. I could yell at her about TTRPG not having the deluxe versions. So that's one of the issues, because I also put up a deluxe version of this book, and I was like, yeah, we'll do this. And the deluxe sold, but I wish it would have sold more, because like I could have printed like if it would have gotten like another, if it was like 50-50 between the standard and the deluxe, I would be able to run a print run and the margins would have been better. But now I had to have a separate print run for the deluxe version with the fancy cover. I'll have to sit on a bunch of extra copies of it, and then that margin is automatically just like amplified, like which is fine. They'll hopefully they'll sell. Hopefully D&D still sells after the OGL thing.
Yeah.
But like the whole concept of the margins on that is just like between the time that you put in, like this was May last year. It finished in June. I'm still writing this book. I think I really fully started writing it around July or so was when I really started getting pen to paper. I did a lot of outline, a lot of concept stuff, because I wanted to get my bosses in line so I can get my STLs done. I wanted to get my concepts done, my themes done, so I knew what themes were going to be on each dungeon. I wanted to have a good idea of how these cards were going to be done, and start to really get, and then just make a cool template for the PDFs and stuff for a layout to be close enough to the 5th edition look, but also its own unique layout, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time I actually really got started, it was like mid-July. And then now we're sitting here almost in February, and I'm wrapping up the last couple of dungeons and getting them formatted and getting them out to play test. And I'm hoping that print run goes real fast and smooth, because I told everyone I was going to try to deliver in April, and so I basically got a month to finish up the play tests and the last formatting of the last couple of PDFs, and then format the full book. I do have a head start because I get a lot of the PDFs. Like I did play test individual dungeons for each one, so they're all somewhat formatted already. They're ready to go. They're ready to paste in, if you will, to a full book. But then I got to get that thing to print and hope it prints and gets shipped back to me so I can ship it out as fast as possible. But yeah, that's a crunch. There's a lot that goes into a Kickstarter.
It really does. It is surprising how much effort and just, I mean, I remember, seeing you and some other creators, watching them getting prepared for their Kickstarters and like getting zero sleep for like 3 months straight.
I didn't sleep the night before I launched.
Yeah.
I get 0 hours of sleep the night before I launched. I was so nervous.
It's a lot. So rate from 1 to 3 or from 1 to 5, I'll leave it up to you. The things that you think contributed to the success of your Kickstarter, that it funded as fast as it did and it funded for as much as it did. What do you think those things would be?
I do think that I had some people recognized my name just from being out there. I had a good amount of people that mentioned in the comments on the Kickstarter or in the survey that they've used my map. So, before on Roll20 and they were a fan of me already. So this was in their mind a book about dungeons from a creator that makes really good dungeon maps. Mm-hmm. To them was a no-brainer, is what they said. I think the number one would probably just be that already recognized brand recognition or whatever you want to call it. I think 2 would be just the social media and the email promotions, if you will, just like getting it out there and spreading the word more and more, posting about it every single day, sending out newsletters, starting a newsletter. By the way, if anyone in here doesn't have an email list, start one. The best time to start an email list was 10 years ago. And the second best time to start an email list is right now. Stop what you're doing and start collecting people's, get people to sign up, make a little website page and give away like a free adventure, like a free PDF or something, or some free maps, and just have them sign up. Be like, give them something, they give you their email, and then you tell them about what you release. And then whenever you do a Kickstarter, you say, hey, I'm taking a big leap. I have this Kickstarter coming out. And that's what I did. I leaned on Patreon a lot for that too. I talked to all my patrons. I said, hey, you're all going to get this by being a patron of mine. You're going to get my playtest PDFs. When the book is done, I'm going to put the PDF. You're not going to get the physical book, but you're going to get the PDF of the full book just by being a patron of mine when it comes out. You're going to get all my maps. I'm going to put these STLs on my Patreon. All this is stuff that you're going to get. But if you want to support me more, you can go and support me right here on this Kickstarter and help make this come to life. And that initial surge, which will be part 3 of getting the email list, the recognition, and then your initial surge will be the number 3 biggest thing, which could be honestly arguably the top one too. Just getting that early surge in signups, pledges on your Kickstarter. It really helps the algorithm over there, and it moves everything so that it becomes, other people feel more comfortable backing it. It shows up in more people's feeds on their things that you might like sections. You get a better chance at Kickstarter putting you in their email blast and all that stuff. And then I think 4, and I don't think any of these are any more important than the other one either. I think they're all parts of it. But just networking with other creators, that was a big part of it too. I had Moonlight Maps, Ollie, I don't know if it was in his newsletter or Kickstarter update for his Kickstarter, but he blasted me out to all of his followers. Benjamin from Adventures Awaits did. Jesse and James from Arcanum Worlds, the guys that made Odyssey of the Dragonlords, they blasted me in their newsletter. I had a handful of other ones as well. I know like Luke Tavern posted about it on Instagram a little bit. CPQ posted about it on their, I think it was on their Discord and on their Twitter. But I had a good like 15 or 20 different creators that posted about it, whether it was in their newsletters, on their Discords, or on their social medias. And that helps out tremendously, And so between all those things kind of working together, it helps build your Kickstarter to become even more successful.
It is interesting how creator sphere, so to speak, works, because on one hand, you would think that, I'm a cartographer and Munky is a cartographer. You would think that would be rivals, but in reality, it actually works out quite differently because we all help each other out. We all work together.
Yeah, no, actually, I'll go back to one of the earlier topics about Twitter and social media. I think that's one of the most important parts of social media.
Mhm.
And it's the whole purpose of this Discord server right here is the rising tides lift all boats.
Yeah.
And it's very, very true. Like I think every week I put out 2 posts, one on Thursday and one on Saturday. The Thursday one is for smaller creators to have 750 or less followers to post their stuff. And if you're a bigger creator, to post about a smaller creator that you like so that they get some attention too and to help grow their followers. And that works 2 ways. It helps them grow their following, and it also helps you as the creator who's posting those things too. I think everyone should do those. I don't think it should just be like me or Domil or Seeing Piku or any of these other. I don't think it should just be certain creators doing it. I think every creator should try to do a rising tides lift all boats post, and just continue. It might suck for your notifications, but like and retweet them all. Try to comment on as many as you can, and you might even find something that you like. And I guarantee you will find something that you like.
Yeah.
Throughout all that, you might even find someone that you might wind up collaborating with.
Yeah.
It might become a really good friend of yours, whether a business partner or just a friend, someone that you can bounce ideas off of. And then the other one I do is basically the same thing. It's on Saturdays, like the little showcase one. And they're just not just for 750. It's for anybody to come and post on. But, both of those every week are honestly my most popular tweets every week, with the exception of like the OGL post. I saw someone in chat earlier say, "Word for how Twitter works, dumpster fire." Yes, that is very true. My most popular post on Twitter happened like 2 weeks ago, and it was basically the dumpster fire of OGL.
Oh, I remember that.
It didn't intend. I was just trying to say, "Hey, Wizards, you guys are messing up." The goal wasn't to have like some kind of super viral Twitter post. I think I did couple it in, because everyone was talking about the boycott on D&D Beyond, and I was like, all right, well, if anyone wants to do that, if you're wanting to walk away from D&D Beyond, I'll make it easier for you. Well, not easier for you to do it, but I'll kind of like help you out a little bit, make you feel a little better about it. Post a screenshot of it, and I'll give you some free maps. And I did. I hit the limit for how many messages Twitter would let me send through private message in about 2 hours.
Yeah, several hours later, I see Munky's responses, and it's like within 500.
I tried to be personal, because I mean all of the first, I'd say about the first 70 or so messages I sent was an extension of their comments. They were like, it was hard to do. I felt really sad, but it's something I had to do. And I was like, I posted in there a link to a Dropbox with I put 30 maps in there, and I was like, well, don't feel too sad. It sucks that we have to do this, but we're sending a message, and hopefully this makes you feel better. And so I tried extending the conversation. There were actually personal messages I sent to everybody, and then at some point it was like around 70 or 80 of them. I was just like, man, I just get to make a copy paste thing on here. And then my copy paste message was, here's the link to the Dropbox with some maps in it. In place of the money that you would send D&D Beyond, you should consider supporting any third-party creator. And I made sure to put any. I didn't want to say support me. I said any third-party creator, so that
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what this whole thing was about. It's about Wizards of the Coast screwing over all the third-party community, and it's like, well, instead of supporting them, support us. And then eventually it just got too much, and I was just like, all right, well, here I ran out of messages, so I just started posting it on as a comment to everyone, and just made it fully public at that point. Hey, here's a link to my website. I just put the thing right there at the top. So all you gotta do is click on my website. It's right there at the top. It's free. There it is.
So I want to go back a little bit to something you were talking about for your Kickstarter. You mentioned that you were finishing up playtesting, and we get a lot of questions here in the server about playtesters. People are looking for them. They want to playtest their games and their TTRPGs. How did you go about it?
Yeah, so I did that through Kickstarter, honestly. Well, through BackerKit.
That's a good idea.
When it funded, we had our BackerKit survey, and I basically had a couple questions. I think question one was like, would you like to join my newsletter? And then, like, if you aren't already. Question two is like, would you like to join my Discord? And then question three was, would you like to join my playtest team? And yeah, and then after that, it was like, here's all the add-ons and all the other stuff. And I had like 290 people sign up to be playtesters. Nowhere near that number of them have actually done the playtesting. But I do look at my click-through through the emails that I send all that stuff through, and it's got a high click-through rate. I got about 60 people opening the email, and about 60% opening the email, and about 45, I think it was, opening the links. So that means that they are going in and downloading the PDFs and looking at the survey at least. But there's about 8% is filling out the survey itself, which is still good. I mean, out of 290 something people, I think it was 292 was the number of people that signed up. That's a decent amount. I mean, I'm getting at least like 20 or 30 responses for each one. Some of them more, some of them less, which is huge. That's a lot of data. That's a lot of stuff to be able to fill through. And my playtest itself was just like my own form of 20 questions, well, more like 30 questions. But I basically just go through the PDF and I ask about it. I ask about the party and some generic questions at the beginning, how much experience they have, this and that. I ask the blunt, straightforward questions. Did you enjoy this? Was this difficult? Was it hard to understand? Did anyone die? Those upfront questions, get those ones out of the way, just to kind of get the approval rate, if you will, of the dungeon and the skill of the players playing. And then I start to get to more specific questions. I'll go through it and I'll ask about, I'll basically go through the whole book, the whole dungeon, and ask about not every little thing, but like the major parts of it. Like, did they go gather gear from the airship to help them get from floating island to floating island? Things like that. And then, throughout all of it, you get some unique responses. And honestly, all the responses I've been getting through my playtest have been great, invaluable. But overall, you'll get an idea. I think the very first dungeon I put out, I'm really glad I got playtesting on it, because like it pointed out, the opening scene, while it was really cool and very thought out and everything, it kind of presented, it didn't encourage exploration, let's put it that way. It encouraged the party to want to go rescue. Basically, the opening scene was basically someone getting grabbed up and dragged deeper into the dungeon. So they wanted to go run after her and save her. So, it made sense, because I wanted the whole other side of the dungeon. I wanted them to be able to go explore, and there's a lot of role play opportunities over there, a lot of investigation, and just ways they could turn the bandits there in this dungeon over against the leader, because they're on the edge of revolting. So with the way I had it set up, with that scene happening in the beginning, nobody wanted to go role play. They just wanted to go run and save. Now I'm changing that to where that's a scene that triggers after they go over there, so that they at least go to one side of to the side that has the role play side of it first, and then the we need to go save this girl scene shows up.
Yeah, sometimes when you're writing adventures and encounters, I know that that's happened to our encounters as well, is when people actually start using them, some unexpected stuff starts happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to kind of change what you're doing.
Yeah.
So we're going to say something else.
No, I was actually going to say, I was just looking at the other questions, because I feel like we really brushed on the Kickstarter one a lot and the Roll20 ones a lot. And I saw that there's a lot of other questions on here. and plus some in chat.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot, but we only have 10 minutes left. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the community questions. And Argent Leon asked, how has the tool set software, other tools changed over the years, Monkey? I would assume that this question is about Roll20, and I know the answer to it, but I'm gonna let you answer. And Argent Leon, if that's not what you mean, please clarify in RT discussions. Also, if anybody else has any more questions, please go ahead and ask them in RT discussion.
I'm going to further elaborate on that one because there's more than one tool set. You got Roll20 and it's gone a long way. Whenever I first started doing Roll20, they didn't even have character sheets. It was just they had dynamic lighting. And it was very basic. But yeah, Roll20's come a long way. And then Foundry's come along. There's the VTT itself has come a long way since I started. Now, as far as like Photoshop, it gets an update every year, but sometimes they aren't that great. I kind of wish I could just stick with the 2017 version because it doesn't break. I've evolved myself by using other tools too. Clip Studios has come out. I actually open up Clip Studio sometimes, and they have an awesome feature in there, Glow Dodge. If you don't know about it, go check it out. I use that on my lighting. I just literally open it up, drop my map in there once it's finished, and then my overlay. I do my soft light, Glow Dodge, and some overlay, and sometimes hard light on top of my lights, just to kind of give it that extra glow. And that extra, it just, I don't know, it just looks really good. I also use a program called Flame Painter 4 that I don't even know when it came out, but I saw it on Humble Bundle like about a year or two ago. And I was like, oh, that looks really cool. I picked it up and I make all my flames in there. I also make a lot of other magical effects in there. Also 3D software in general. I used to make my assets all in Photoshop and just kind of drawing them from references. Now I do stuff in ZBrush because I wanted to learn how to do 3D modeling for STLs. And I was just like, you know what, I'm going to start doing this for my assets too. So I build my assets in ZBrush, and then I import that into Photoshop, and then I paint it on top of inside of Photoshop. So as far as that goes, how did the tools change? They've changed a lot, but you also have other tools too. You don't have to be a Photoshop, ZBrush, Flame Painter person to make good maps. Like Incarnate, Dungeon Draft, they have come a long way, and there's so much assets out there. I have a bunch of them. I have like 3,000 something assets that you can get on my Patreon that you can just load into Dungeon Draft. They got shadows on them already, so I know Dungeon Draft has its own shadows, but you can load them in there. And if you don't mind having my shadow, my 120 degree angle shadow, they're in there. But like other creators like Forgotten Adventures, Tom Cartos, they make assets to make it to where anybody can make maps now, and that's huge. But yeah, that's how I think the software and other tools have changed over the years. They've evolved and gotten really good. I hope that's a good answer.
Yeah, and additionally, I think that Roll20 evolved so much over the last, I would say, 4 years. I remember the time when we had to send our content to them through Google Forms, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even have an interface for creators, but now they do, and they have new leadership, and it's constantly evolving now.
They changed a lot over the last year and a half.
Yeah.
I remember the Google Doc. At one point, it wasn't even a Google Doc. We had to load our assets up one at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like no one did it for you. You had to do it yourself. It was hard.
Yep.
But like just beyond just that, like they because they fell behind. I don't think anybody. I don't even think they will deny it. They fell behind in the VTT game. Their Foundry came out swinging. Fantasy Grounds, they made a little. They kind of came up and matched Roll20, I think, at one point. And then you get all these other VTTs that kind of came out. Roll20 fell behind. That's all there is to it. Now, in the last year and a half, they've come through and they've developed a lot of really good features that really people have been asking for. They have windows and doors. They have their dynamic lighting is just better. It doesn't lag as much.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much stuff that they've added a lot of good stuff lately.
Yeah, it's actually amazing to see, and their communications improved so much as well with the marketplace creators, I think, as well as the players themselves.
So one question I did see on this list, I did want to touch on that I don't think we talked about yet, and it was on your banner as like these secrets to success or whatever you called it. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really weird word. I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to call it success. Like, I guess I'm successful. So I looked up what success was, or at least I Googled, and I said, what is success? And I found a really cool image on Google that I didn't like read the article that it came from or whatever. But it's basically, and it kind of made me think, and I put a lot of thought into it once I saw it. I actually shared it with you the other day. It was a triangle. It looks like it was made in MS Paint, but it's called the success triangle. And they have three pillars, if you will, three pinnacles of success on there. There's what they call it sales. I think is more fitting to call it like financial success. So you can consider what is your financial success? Like, is it per product or for your full thing? That's kind of something that you kind of got to set yourself. There's social success. What other people are perceiving your success. You know, do people recognize your name? Do other people look at you and say, hey, you're successful? I don't think I'm like super, I know I'm a little bit, but I don't think I'm like super successful. But someone else might think I am. They might look at my name and go, hey, I've used his maps before. This person's awesome. And they're super successful. There's self-success. And that's the one that I think, personally, now it's arguably that they're all pretty important, and but I think self-success is the most important one on this list. And why I say that is because what your goals are, what you want to accomplish, you set those and be realistic about them. But set your goals to what you want to accomplish. Do you know what my goal was when I started selling stuff on the marketplace, Domil?
What was your goal?
My entire goal was to pay for my Roll20 subscription and my Photoshop subscription. That was it. That was my self goal.
Hey, you've really succeeded in that. 100%, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
So yeah, I at that point it's like, so I guess the self side of it is like, okay, is it going to be able, like do you want it to be able to give you a little bit of extra income, to give you some spending money? Do you want to be able to make it to where you can help support other creators? Or do you want it to be your full-time thing where you're actually supporting a family or yourself or others on your income? And then at some point, once you get to that stage to where you're successful enough to get Photoshop and Roll20 paid for, then you're successful enough to make it like a little side hustle to where you're supporting other creators and buying other cool stuff. And then you're becoming successful enough to be able to support yourself and your family if you have one. Then beyond that, like, do you continue growing? Are you going to expand? Because at that point, self-success moves on from just you and turns into you're successfully being able to hire other people and support them as well as their income. So that whole success thing, I think it really expands as you grow, I think. And I wanted to kind of touch on that part at least.
Yeah. So we're pretty much almost on the dot, but I wanted to ask you, as a professional creator, someone who has been making your living with, doing this, the thing that we do, this weird freaking thing, what would be your advice to those who are just starting out in this industry?
I think that the successful goal right there is a good part to say, set your goals, be realistic about them. Some people, it's very rare for someone just to blow up overnight. I mean, Tom Kartos did, but that's like 1 in a million.
Yeah, it happens so rarely. It's possible, but
yeah,
it's so rare.
But like, you don't want to set yourself up for failure by wanting your goals to be too high, but don't set your goals too low either, like I did at the beginning, because you really can do something good in this. But other things, like, I think making sure that you take care of your headspace is a big one. You don't want to burn yourself out.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to overcommit yourself. You don't want to go too far to where, where you overpromise and then you start to not like it. There's been times when I've been creating content over the last 8 years where I've burnt myself out, and you got to take a step back and you got to reevaluate how much you put out, how much you promise. And that's a real thing. You know, you don't want to set your expectation for your fans too high by doing that. So, and just, you got to, if you're happier, if you're more in your headspace, if you're more like not burn out, you're going to create better stuff. You just naturally will follow your inspiration. I think it's really good to pay attention to the trends. Like I mentioned earlier, biomes. If you're a map maker, you want to hit all the biomes. If you're a token creator, you want to hit the core basics. You really do. I hate to say it like that, but like, I don't want to say generic is the only thing that ever sells, but a lot of the times you want to cover those basics first, because as you grow and get to the cooler stuff, I mean, you can sprinkle the cool stuff in there while you go too. But as you go, you want to at least have those basics that everyone looks for. Because if you want to actually really have growth, you need to have, as a map maker, you need to have your dungeons, you need to have your forests, you need to have your deserts. You need to have those things that are popular enough for enough people to want, to be able to get them in and get them excited about that awesome airship you make, you know?
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to use the airship, but everyone's going to use the forest.
Yep, that does sound about right. All right. Well, Munky, thank you so much for coming to chat with me and share your knowledge and experience in this industry and the crazy, crazy world that we're currently living. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was fun.
Everybody here in the audience as well, thank you so much for listening in. This will be available in our podcast and on our YouTube channel soon, once I actually get to editing it, which, you know, time is a commodity. But again, thank you so much, everybody. Munky, you're awesome. Love all of your stuff. Everybody go check it out if you haven't seen it yet. And yeah, thanks everyone. Going to wrap it up.
Yeah, join us next week when we yell at the sky about the OGL. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Bye.